Thank you for everybody for joining. This is part two of a five-part Decentraland focused workshop. Today we're going to be going deeper into the SDK. So if you didn't follow along on the first one, I basically just ranted for 2.5 hours about why I love Decentraland. And now we're actually going to jump in and get more familiar with the code and actually how to build things, just in general. Next week, we're going to take an even further deeper dive into more complicated things with hopes of connecting to maybe WebSocket servers and other things that I think are really going to make the content of Decentraland a lot more user-friendly and important. I think that's the direction I think we all kind of want to head in. But for right now, there is this repository. I would appreciate it very much if you guys could go ahead and pull this repo down. I just recently added a new folder called Session 2. There should be a link right now in the chat, and I think there will be one provided later, maybe in the video itself. So in this folder, we basically just have a default installation. The only thing I really did was I just added a bunch of models and sounds and maybe an image or two, because we're going to be leveraging those as resources for our project. And it would be good if everybody kind of was using the same ones. Okay. So without further ado, all right. So let's take a look at this is the most important thing. Let me get rid of this Zoom thing. So the docs at Decentraland. It is docs.decentraland.org. This is where we're going to learn most of our things. I want to try to not only instruct you guys on what is actually happening, but I want to show you guys how to find things in the documentation. It's a little different than normal. So if you're used to other types of docs, it's a little bit different. So it takes some getting used to. But mostly what we want to do is go to docs, create SDK, and we want to go to getting started, right? We just want to kind of follow through. So if you haven't done this in the past, I think we did this near the end of the last session, but we want everyone to make sure that they're doing it now. This is the way that you install Decentraland. It's just you should have Node installed. If you're on Windows, it helps to have, I think, like git bash or something along those lines, so at least you can use these types of commands. But I'm assuming that everyone pretty much has this set up. If you don't, maybe message in the chat and maybe someone can help you along with that, but this is what you need to do. So this command will take probably about a minute. I've already done it, but I guess I can do it again. I'm going to do npm install g Decentraland. Okay, I'm just going to throw it on the side. So it takes a little bit of time. What this is downloading is all of the libraries to be able to run it on your local machine. It's being installed globally because what we might want to do is make a whole bunch of different scenes very rapidly. So it's kind of like a Yayo Man, if you're familiar with something like that, which is it's a scaffolding of sorts that allow you just to instance up a new build. I'm going to do one real quick. It's done downloading. That's all you really kind of need to do. But I have this Decentraland workshop, right? These are the sessions. Well, I'm going to make a new directory, and I'm going to do session 3. Now, this is next week, but I just want to show you how to install it, right? So once I get into the directory, I just do DCL init. And now this is scaffolding the entire project. It's creating a number of files that we'll jump right into in just a second. But just know that. And if I wanted to start this scene immediately, I can just do DCL start. And we'll do that just for showing just you guys how it works. So it opened up the web browser to like a local instance is running Docker or something locally. So this is also establishing a WebSocket connection with the files that are in my directory. So there will be hot loading, which is really cool. Right, and this is the default scene. So in this scene, we'll look at the code in a second, but the code in this one is if you click this box, it changes its shape and it makes a random box. Not all that interesting, to be honest, but you can just keep doing this forever. All right, okay, so you got a whole bunch. So this is what you should expect. I'm gonna you hit escape to exit out of that first person mode, just in case you get a little stuck there. Also, if you are in the third person mode, you can hit V to toggle in and out. So all the same controls that are in Decentraland do apply in the preview, including all of the settings and all of these other things. And we'll get to those in more details, time goes on. I'm going to close it for now. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close out. So this is running in the background. You'll see this is open. This process is still listening. Even though I close the web browser, it is still going. I could actually click on the link that is there. I can save this to bookmarks. It's running, so it'll open up again, as you see, the same scene. Sometimes it takes a little while. Right now, when I hit Control C on a Mac, I don't know what it might be on Windows. I'm actually terminating the service, and it will no longer run, essentially in the browser, and that's okay because we're going to do it here. So I'm going to back out, and we're going to look at the other directory. So if you have cloned this repository, you should be able to see it. Let's just open it up. So I have just a shortcut with Visual Studio Code, just to just type in code and then dot, and it'll open up. You can use any IDE. It doesn't really matter, but I like Visual Studio Code. Now let's take a look at what it actually made for us. Okay, so keep in mind this is just the default installation plus a couple sounds, right, that I grabbed, some models, right? We'll get into that, and an image or two. Nothing too fancy, right? The scene.json, this is one of the most important files that you'll have. This basically this controls what your scene looks like. So I only have one parcel in there right now, and I think for the majority of this session, we'll just deal with that. But I want to show you real quick. Let me first get this running. Actually, let me update it first. When you update this file, you should do a hard reset, which is basically just turn it off and then on again. So this parcels is an array of XY coordinates for your parcel. So just to get a shape, I'm making a 1 by 2. So it's 0, 0, 0, 1. I'll show you what that is in a second. Actually, I'm going to make it a little longer than that, maybe. 0, 2. You can make it any odd shape that you want. It has to be valid JSON, so no trailing comments. Right. So if we look at the marketplace .org, I just want to show you. They all come. Just do this. Ugh, okay. I don't want to get started. I want to go up to the marketplace. Oh, it's just market. I didn't know that. Okay. So when we look at the lands, see, they come in all varying sizes. So depending on the property that you have, this is where you would put in the actual coordinates. So like this place right here, you can see this is -23.1, right? And that is just a single parcel. But if you look at these other ones, I mean, they come in very weird shapes. I mean, some of them are very difficult to kind of to glean. But essentially, it's just an array of those coordinates. And when you get to deploy your content later, this is going to be really important, and you won't be able to do it unless you have it right. So you do need to have the NFT land token in order to deploy on a parcel. So you know that's just what if you own land, which let me see, I don't know if I sign it. Yeah, I'm trying to find my property. I have some property down over here. This is the block, right? So this is, where are the coordinates? So here, if I have a different size property, it'll show you all of the pieces of it. So you can kind of come in here, and if I wanted to start this project right now, or I wanted to make it for my specific parcel, I would just type in these coordinates. Make it easy. Oops. And I have to set a base. This might not exist that in the future. By the way, they may change what a base is, but think of it like the center of your world, essentially. If you have a lot of parcels, you might want to pick like the bottom left-hand corner. Essentially, that establishes where 0, X, Y, Z is. Just so you know. So there is a little bit of method to the madness of what you want to set as your base, but I believe in the future it's not going to matter. At least that's what I've heard. And those are my 2 parcels. Okay, so now let's go into the terminal. I'm still in here. You don't have to update it to this unless you really want to, but I'm going to do DCL start. And we're going to see that it's going to recognize that. And it's going to show me on the map in the top left-hand corner my parcels. This also gives me an opportunity to double check, make sure it's not in any weird shape that I'm not expecting. Okay. See, so if you look over here in the top left-hand corner, those are those 2 little parcels that I own for my property. Okay, and you can see that because I added 2 of these parcels, I got 2 right here. And this is plenty of space to work with. Actually, even one is just fine. I think that with the considering the prices of parcels, you'd be very happy just to have one. But if you do decide to rent large areas for special events, it's only a couple $100 to rent it for a month. You can host an event and you can have whatever weird shape and size you want. But by the end of the entire series, we'll have a workshop and we'll get people in touch with renters and landowners and things like that. But okay, so that's pretty much it. So the top up here is very reminiscent of like a package.json. This is what the scene is, the name, description. If you have an image or a picture of it, right, like that appears when you look at the explore and play. It's not going to do it on my local machine, but when you're actually playing in Decentraland, there's a little image that appears and stuff like that. That's all that little thumbnail is. You might want to put some contact information as well, just so people can get in touch with you. Maybe if they want to buy your property or they want to do something and it's not apparent within your property, like you don't have like a Discord link or anything like that, you might want to add some of that information here. We'll also notice spawn points. So this is where the user will jump into your world. So obviously, you know, if you have a podium in the middle and you want people to stand on it when they first enter, like if they went to the map and they clicked on it and they joined it and they didn't just run in from the side or the angle, that basically just tells you, you know, what XYZ location should they be put at and what's the camera target. And just there's many different types of spawn points, so you can have a whole bunch if you want. I'm not entirely sure why you would have more than one, but maybe. Okay. There are some other features and things in here, require permissions. We'll get to that a little bit later. So on your property, there are certain things that Decentraland doesn't want every user just to do. They want to leave it to the developer to determine special things, like can the user teleport? Can they have their avatar replaced, and a bunch of other things. They're very specific, and it's not important to get into those right now. But understand your JSON, the scene JSON. It's very important. Also note, I added a git ignore to this repository. This is one of the other files other than the sounds and images. You can use this for your project. It's pretty good. I mean, you don't obviously want to include node modules and your DS store if you're on a Mac and stuff like that. So copy and paste this into your project. It would be great if they added it as a default, but unfortunately did not. You'll also notice a DCL.ignore. So what this does is when all of our content is assembled, all of our images or models and textures and everything are bundled up together, it's going to grab everything in here for the most part. This file, this folder right here, is basically saying, hey, don't package that up. And this is really important for when you're working with another team. So, or even just yourself and you want to have it in a repository. So generally what I tend to do is I have an assets directory and I make a new folder in here and I might call it Blender to keep all my Blender files and maybe like Photoshop or whatever naming convention you want, right? And I don't want those bundled up when I deploy them to Decentraland. What I want is to have it in my repository, and I want other developers and people that I'm working with to, oh, I need to change this model. I'm gonna open the Blender. I'm gonna save it, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm gonna add assets to my DCL ignore file, and we're structuring our project now in a way that I believe is like the best way possible, to be honest. We'll get to this TS config at some point, but just note that some of the libraries that we are going to install, they'll have you come in here and modify them. I haven't been able to fully test it, but I think that they do have some, they made some improvements where you might not have to do this. And I guess we'll come to it if it's necessary, but just know that you will have to update this at certain instances, but it's pretty rare. It's only when you're installing very specific things, like the physics engine or Colossus server, and we'll get to those individually in a little bit too. All right, let's jump into it. So let's take a look at our game.ts. Now, everything in this file, I think it's a good experiment. I think it's interesting to start with, but I like to just get rid of it immediately and don't even bother. And the reason for it is I think it kind of encourages maybe not the best practices that have been like slowly established. I mean, obviously there are no best practices, but I think we're kind of getting there, and maybe together we can all decide on like what is a good common practice for all of us. Okay, so next step is let's go take a look at the docs, right? So we did our installation. We can skip a lot of this stuff. Let's take a good look at what makes Decentraland work. Okay, so it operates on these 4 key principles, and we're going to go through them very, very quickly, but thoroughly. Like we're interfacing with these things like nonstop for the next 2 hours, so we have to get very familiar with them. Oops, okay, so the engine, when we want to render models, textures, anything in Decentraland, it has to be pushed to the engine. So we can make a whole bunch of different types of entities and systems and components. We'll get to those. But if they don't get put into the engine, it's not going to know what to do. It's just going to, it's very similar with the DOM, where you can have like a virtual DOM and you could manipulate it and do a bunch of stuff. But unless it gets actually inserted into the DOM, it doesn't really have much of an impact on anything, right? So the same rules kind of apply there. Okay, so let's start with our first instance of, let's try to make a door. Okay, so let's take a look at our models. I think there is a door.glb. And now I'm going to introduce you guys to a link. Let me see what it was. Hold on. So there is a Babylon viewer. What is it? Okay, so if we go into the browser, we do sandbox.babylonjs.com, right? Remind me later. So what standard practice, well, not really standard practice, if we want to see what this model looks like, we can do this thing where we nope, sorry, that's not what I wanted. We want to go to models. Let's do reveal in Finder. That's the one. Okay, let's look at our models. Okay, and down. All we're going to do is we're going to drag the door.glb and we get to see it. So Babylon.js is a 3D renderer and it accepts these types of files. So this is what we're looking at, is a door, and it actually has 2 animations. So there's down here, we have blank. This is what a lot of people are using just to see if the model is going to render in Decentraland. Sometimes you might import a model and you're just like, hey, it doesn't look like this or it doesn't work or whatever it might be. Throw it into this. This is a really useful link. And I'm actually going to go ahead and I'm going to actually add it into the chat so you guys can leverage it, unless someone has done that already. Nope. Okay. So you can do this with all of the models that are in the repository, and maybe we'll do that. There is one here. You'll notice there's some images as well. So you might, I'm trying to remember which one it was. I think it is, let's see, is it crate? Yeah, so crate. When I import this in, it's going to say failed to load Genesis tx.png. That's because this model also requires a texture, and you can drag them both on over, and then you can see a crate that will likely play with in just a short period of time. Just so you guys are familiar with like why something might not render. A lot of these models will do a thing where they'll separate the 3D model from the texture, and there's a lot of reasons that people do that. Mostly is if a texture is being repeated across multiple models, you don't want to have it bundled together necessarily, like, because that's what a GLB technically is usually. I don't know under why this circumstance it's external, but a GLB is like a zip of all of the model, the animations and everything. And there's another format called the GLTF that we'll get to. But let's just start by just let's import this door model, and let's start. So when we look at the awesome repository, this is where I got all of these models and all of these projects. So I highly recommend everybody come through here. And I kind of want to take this direction real quick. I'm sorry to deviate just a little bit, but I want to kind of show you when we go over these types of projects, what the code tends to look like. And this is what I don't really love a lot. A lot of the code is inline. It just reads straight down. It's hard to find things. And a lot, it can be a little bit confusing. So what I want to try to show you guys is that even though we might go dip into some of these scenes in the future, you'll come across this type of code often, and it's not really conducive to reusability. You're pulling little pieces here and there, and I'll quickly get to why that might not be the best way of handling it. So let's do this. Okay, so let's create our first class. I'm going to just call it door. Okay, so we're going to do class door extends entity. So in Decentraland, entity is a specific object type, and it has a constructor you have to call, and super. You have to do this, otherwise the TypeScript gods will get really angry with you. And this entity, it isn't doing anything at the moment because one, it's just a class. It hasn't been instantiated at all. I can make a new door by doing const door, lowercase, it's different, equals new door, right? And I can save this, and we're still not going to see anything yet because of two reasons. One, I don't have a model. I don't have anything added into it yet, and I haven't added it to the engine yet. So one of the first things I like to do, because it's always forgotten, is you do engine.add entity and this. So when I instantiate this new door, all it's doing is it's creating this new thing and it's adding it into the engine. We'll see there's nothing there. Okay. Now we want to add a component. It's very the components are very critical to this entire process. Let's look at what components do they have. Okay. So this is a good image that kind of explains what they are. Entities need a transform component and a shape component, really to do much of anything. So we'll add that. And there's other ones like physics. Most components are only one. You can only really have one for most of them. So if I have a transform component, which is the XYZ location of it, or a shape, which is the model, or maybe it's a plane or a sphere or something, there can only be one of them. There can only be one shape. There can only be one location for an object. So what we're going to do is we're going to do this dot add component, right? And also keep in mind this, or replace. We'll get to that in upcoming hours and minutes, more than likely. But let's add a new component, and we want to add a transform, right? And I'm going to open a little curlies, and I'm going to do that. So if we look at this transform, it has a position, a rotation, and a scale. And let's look at how we add those. So we have position. Yep. And actually, as I'm typing it, TypeScript is letting me know this takes a vector3 object. So instead of just kind of doing, X, 0, Y, 1, Z, whatever, we're going to do new vector3. Right. And there's also a vector4 and there's a vector2, and they have their own uses and everything. And now TypeScript is letting me know it's a function. So the first one is X, Y, or Z, or Z, however you pronounce it. So let's just say 8. You sometimes want to play around with this. Say 1, 8. Okay. I could just leave it there, but I want to show all the other ones. You have scale, which also takes a vector3. And you want to have 1, 1, 1 for the most. So this will be whatever in meters it is. This is 100%. So if I want to have it double size, it would be 222. If I wanted to play with the sizes and the dimensions and everything, you could do that with that. And then a rotation. And rotation is super confusing for so many people because it introduces a quaternion, which is essentially a X, Y, Z, W is essentially what are the, for some reason, rotation in the 3D world, it requires another axis for like spinning it top-wise, I believe, right? But that's not really human readable. If you mess around with it for a while, you realize it's kind of unwieldy. What we do in Decentraland or most 3D graphics engine stuff is we turn them into Eulers. So a Euler angle is the 0 to 360 that we know and we love, I guess. It makes it a lot more understandable. So this is probably the preferred method. It gives us our sanity back when we're coding, because I can just come in here and I can say, oh, I know that is rotated 90 degrees on the y-axis, right? And we'll mess with that in a second. So I added my transform, right? And I can save this, and we'll see that nothing has actually happened still because we don't have that model that is in there. So let's do that. Let's add a fancy model. This dot add component new. Now this is where we can get into the docs, and let's see if I can find the actual docs for this one. So we have shape components. So on this one, this is where we're going to see all of the types of shapes that we can give it. So we have a cube, there's a box, sphere, plane, a cylinder, a cone. There's some I don't even understand, to be honest with you. Where are they? There's some really weird ones. They're not listed here for some reason, but that's okay. We're gonna use the GLTF shape, which, let's see, where's there? Yes. So they're down here, 3D models. We can see this is the markup. So you can come to this page if you kind of forget. It might take some getting used to. All right, so we're going to do that, and we're going to pass it in the location of our door model. So I like how TypeScript just autocompletes. It makes everything super easy. And when Decentraland bundles all together, you can just use these types of paths. So models. Let me just double check. I think it's just door.glb. It's always good to make sure. Okay. So now we've added it to the engine. We gave it a location and we gave it a shape. So I just saved it. We'll go back to Decentraland. See where it is. Should be right here. It should be right here. Might have to do I have to refresh it. Might have to refresh it sometimes. Just 1 second. So if we wanted to replace this with, we wanted to make it a cube or anything else, we would just change the shape right here. Give this a couple more seconds. I don't know why it's being slow. Okay. Oh, there we go. Okay, cool. So this door has an animation. And we can see one of the first annoying things. There's 2 things actually about this that are probably pretty annoying. Is it's off the ground. I want it on the ground, and it's constantly animating. So let's start by, I know that when I added it as a position, I added the y-axis to be 1. Right. So now it's a little bit closer to the ground. That's fine. I think maybe even a little bit less, right? So I can do like negative 0.0. I'm gonna be working on this file, so sometimes it helps just to. I don't know why it's not going further. It is what it is. Okay, but this does have an animation. So let's take a look at how to turn off the animations. So let's see, the fastest way to do that is to handle animations. It's going to, by default, just do that. But if we scroll down a little bit, what we want to do is just add a new animator and add this as a component. So animators are just the way that we can interface with Babylon's, that's not on this one, but the names for each of these animations. So we want to tell it, just start that one animation that is empty. And we can come in here and we could just copy and paste it, new animator, right? And then we can do this dot add component animator, or for shorthand, we can just kind of just put that in here and just call it a day. All right, you can do that. That should, I don't know if that does get rid of it actually. So, I don't know why I have to refresh. Yep, okay. So by just adding an animator, now it is completely closed, right? Let's add some more objects to this because I want us to get really used to creating these things and making them a little bit more dynamic. Getting in this habit is going to really save us a lot down the road. So I have my first door, and I think what I want to do is I want to make a new folder in here, and I want to call it entities maybe. Right? It is an entity after all. I want to make a new file. I'm going to call it door.ts. Okay. And I'm just going to copy this. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to put it in here. Now, I have to export this. It's part of how Node works. So export export class door. Okay, I'm going to save this. For those that aren't familiar with this aspect of Node, I apologize. Could go into more detail with it later. If you need specific help, get in touch with me after and I can go over it. But it's typical to Node. So now I'm going to just kind of get rid of this for a second. I'm going to do a new door, right? I start to type it. TypeScript is auto-completing it for me. I don't want to have to deal with all that import nonsense. I just click it, right? And it knew where the door was, and now it's there. So now I've actually broken my door. Oh, I've broken my door just period because I didn't add that. So that's how we do it in the constructor. We could take a look, and it's still there. And let's quickly get into some other, let's add some other stuff into here. Right. I might want to have multiple doors, and I might want to have them in different locations. So there's a couple ways of going about that. I can pass them in the constructor function, right? I can say position, and I can say new, or I can say vector3, capital V, right? I can say that. Maybe I want, do I want to pass the scale? Let's just do position for now. Okay, so I can also, in the constructor, I can also give it a default if I wanted to. But I guess I really don't need that right now. Yeah, I don't need that. Let's just copy this value. Okay, we can do that. Just position. So all it's doing is when I create this, it's just going to take whatever parameter. The first one is position. It's going to pass it along through here. We don't have to go and do position, right? Because that's JavaScript shorthand. You don't have to do that. If the name of the variable is, if it's like that, you don't have to do shorthand. Forget. Okay, so let's do that. So let's come in here and let's pass in our new door, and let's pass in this vector. Okay, so it's going to do that. I don't know what sometimes your model will turn red, and this is mostly because if it goes outside of the bounds of this area, or for some other reasons it just is not renderable, it'll try to let you know by making it red. But sometimes it's not even all that descript. Let's see if the console log. Sometimes it just happens when you're doing stuff like that, right? Let's see. So you get some warnings in here, not a lot. I don't really see anything in here, so it's probably not really relevant. I'm going to refresh and it'll more than likely just go away. Cool. So this specific door is attached to it comes from a specific project. Let's take a look. Yeah, see, it's fine now. Our door is fine. This one comes from the awesome repository. And this door comes from the, where is it? This one, the NFT Scanner basic one. All right. So be sure to take a look at a lot of these repositories after the session. You'll find a lot of useful information in here. It's all by example, but you see here, they have a scanner where they kind of go in and click it. If you have an NFT of a specific type, it's the repository to go to get that feature. There's some examples and stuff in here. Almost all of these repositories, with rare exception, require you to just clone it, DCL start. This one, because it interfaces with Web3, you're doing smart contract in any kind, you would have to type in @enable Web3. As of the most recent update, which was last week on Wednesday, you don't have to do this anymore. So if you come across this in any of the other repositories, you can ignore it for the most part. Okay, just that's a heads up. Okay, so what did I want to do? Oh, I wanted to see what the what model was it? Facade. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's actually take this door. Let's make a new one because maybe we want to add that facade as well. For the most part, I can just copy the door. Not much is going to change for this for right now because we're just going to call it facade. And you might want to pass in the position, but obviously this is different. This model, right? So we have the models. Just make sure I did include it. Yeah, it is there. Cool. Sweet. Fantastic. All right, I'm going to save it. Let's go back to our Decentraland. Okay. And let's add the facade. So I'm just going to do this. I'm going to copy it. I'm hoping that they have the locked autocomplete I'm hoping that they have about the same coordinates or location. I guess we'll see. Yep. So when they made this model, they set the X, Y, Z in the exact location, which is cool. So we don't have to really kind of mess with anything. We got our door, knock, knock. It doesn't work. It is not working. So these models have a collider, which is the reason why I can't run into them. Just one quick question from Robert. How close to 3JS would you say the docs or development is? So the docs are pretty thorough, and they're one of the easiest ways to find something is to just do a search in the top, and it'll like animations, right? If I wanted to do that, it's pretty good. There's a lot of work I think to do on it though. Like I think that the community would do a lot better if the docs were a little bit more consistent with, you know, what we kind of expect with other types of things. Like for instance, if I just wanted to make an NFT gallery, you might have to poke around a little. And some of the naming conventions, like we know what we want in our head, but we don't know what the words are in Decentraland. So maybe the docs could be a little better in that area, but they're not the worst I've ever seen, and they're getting better constantly. So I would imagine in about 5 months from now, they'll be up to speed with what we should be expecting. I'm going to close that tab because it keeps getting in the way. All right, cool. So we've added our models. Now I want to do something where I want to click on this, and I want to play the open animation. Okay. So before I go to the handle animations, I want to find like a clickable event. Right. I have an OnClick that I'd like to add to this specific door. So let me see this. So actually, let's do that. Let's do OnClick. We have game objects, new OnClick. This is perfect. So game objects, we can scroll down. They're using the door example. Okay. Scroll down. Oh, there we go. Perfect. So what we're just another event, just like how we have the transform and we have the shape, we also have an OnClick. So let's. What was this one? Oh, confusing myself. Okay. So let's go to the door. Our beautiful, beautiful door. Okay, let's space some of these guys out a little bit. There, we have a transform. Okay. Let's add. Now it's this, right? Because we're referencing this object itself. OnClick. Now we haven't done this yet, and we're going to do it right now. We're going to add a new function to this. So our constructor function, we're going to come here. We're going to do toggle door. So we're going to add our first function to our entity. And this is where we can start to see how we can make these components like almost like React components. They can have different types of things. You can have toggle door, you can have open door, closed door, spin door. I don't know. But what we're going to do here is we want to now play this animator. We want that door animation. So let's go back to the docs. And let's do, what was it, handle animations, right? Getting familiar with these docs is really important. I could have just typed it up, and actually on another screen I have it already handy, but what's the point? We have to learn how to use these docs, find the flaws in these docs, and make them better. So here we have our animator. So they added the specific animator to the component, and there's a different animation state. So when we were in Babylon.js, and yes, you can definitely contribute to the docs, by the way, Robert, if you'd like to. And that would be a great help. Anything in that area would just be fantastic. There's, I personally would love to see if everybody started submitting a lot of questions and things to Stack Overflow with the tag of Decentraland, because what I find in the SDK chat or any of the Decentraland related Discord chats is the same question gets asked all the time. I'm trying to address a lot of them during these specific sessions, but if we were to start throwing all our questions there, I think we can get to the bottom of a lot of these things a lot faster, to be honest. So let's just, let's do something real quick. We have that door GLB. I like to do this so that I can see what animations are available. So obviously it starts off with blank, which is closed, and we have open door. So when we're looking at this code, our animation state is going to be that. It's going to be open door. So let's do that. I'm copying the code. It's cool to copy. I don't know who told you otherwise. Let's see. Okay, so we want this to be open door. Open door. Okay. We might have to change some of this stuff up as we go. Okay, so our animator, we need to add that clip. And we're going to see something here right now. Where's the animator? Where is it? So up here, I just declare, and that's it. But what I'd like to do here is we're going to introduce ourselves to the private and public aspect of JavaScript classes. So I can store this animator right now, just so that I can use it later. So I'm going to do public. You can do public if you'd like. Animator. And in TypeScript, you have to declare the type, right? And it's going to get mad at me because I haven't actually declared it yet. Like property animator has no initializer, right? On this specific instance, it's cool that we give it a default because there's only going to be one, right? But some other values, and as we get further along, we're going to see like maybe in the construct, if I declare something up here, like if I said scale, right? And I say vector 3. And I don't do new I don't do this, right? What I would want to do is down here somewhere, as I would do this dot scale equals new vector 3, and then it'll shut it up. It's like, okay, now it knows that it's expecting this value. The constructor will satisfy that and make that value available. But we don't really need to worry too much about that aspect of it right now. In fact, I don't think our property would be able to facilitate something like that. So this component, new animator, nope. We're going to change this to be this dot animator. Cool. So over here, now I can reference this entity. It's only in this entity too, which is really important. And this is not clip swim, it is open door anim, okay? This will be a great time to also introduce people to the always annoying logging feature of Decentraland. So if you're in a web browser forever, you do console dot whatever, right? In Decentraland, it renames it to this ungodly thing that I don't think anyone ever uses, because in Decentraland, it uses just straight up log. Right? I like to always be yelling in my console logs, right? So let's take a look in our debugger. And it might be worthwhile to go a little bit into the debugging tools because we might see them quite often, right? So I'm going to just clear this out. I will get into how to debug this thing proper in a second. Okay, so I'm going to go over it and I'm going to click it. Look, this is being clicked. Boom, boom, boom. It should have opened actually too, to be honest with you. I don't know why it did not open. Let's take a look. Animation state, this animator.add clip. I think that's the state. It should be there. It's just all lowercase actually. Save it. Well, two things happen. I know that it's being clicked. I know that it's running this function. I don't know why the door isn't opening though, that's for sure. I'm going to put it down there. Test this. Okay. So let me also just reposition these tools for a second. I want to introduce you guys to something too. We will fix that door opening, but this is a great time. This works also in any web development. I don't know why it's underutilized, but if I wanted to stop the state at any moment in time, you can type in debugger. That's it. So while the console here is open, our debugging tools, as JavaScript is being executed, anytime it comes across this debugger, it's going to stop dead in its tracks. And we might want that right now. Boom. So it stopped it, and it went directly to the part of the code where I have this debugger. It stopped it absolutely, right? So I can take a look at, I can hover over all of these things, and I can get a better idea about what is open door anim, right? I can see that it's, you know, it has all these other properties, right? And let's actually open it up a little bit, because I think people really need to know about this. Hit escape. So I can actually come in here and I can do open door anim. I can actually, this is JavaScript, right? So I can just like hit that. I can get a better idea what's actually in here. And this is going to be important for while we're messing around in Decentraland, getting into the weeds of it, seeing what each of these entities and pieces are actually composed of. Will give us a better idea. There might even be some hidden features and things that we weren't aware of that might not even be documented. Right, Robert? You can help out with those docs? I love Robert. He doesn't even know. So we have like all these other values. Some of this stuff would be useful to kind of grab as well. Maybe we would want it. But I'm trying to see like exactly why the, what is up with this, that value. So we look in here. Blank, we have open door. Let's take a look actually inside of the GLB file, by the way, because maybe there is something wrong with it. GLB files, door. Yeah, open it anyway. Let's live on the edge. Yeah. Oh, it's just all bundled, huh? All right, so let's open up Blender. Let's double check. I like that this is happening because this can happen at any point in time, and sorting through it is important. So let's take a look at Blender. There are animations on each of these objects. You don't need to understand Blender to do what I'm doing. So if you are a developer and the 3D artist gives you a bunch of files and stuff, you'll be able to open it up exactly like this. Love it. Okay, how are we doing on time? Okay, you have to do this in Blender. You have to click on the box, you have to hit X, and you have to delete it. It is important. I don't know why, but it is absolutely critical. You have to delete the start cube every time. I don't know where I am. Guys, I am disorganized. Ugh. Models. Working on something. You guys are seeing behind the curtain here. Ugh, I should have done this. It is in DCL Connect. I'm working on a DCL Connect project. By the end of this, I'd like to show you guys it actually. It's pretty cool. Session 2. Let's go to our models. This might be also where, oh, I did all that for nothing. I'm going to copy this URL. Let's do file import. And we want to import the GLTF or the GLB. Up here. Just paste it in there for easy use. Let's go to our door. Ah, beautiful door. This is a great opportunity to take a look at something that will be confusing to some. So this kind of looks like our door. These are all the different view modes of Blender. You got to bounce around like that's the button here looks like a globe. We'll show you all the vector. This will show you a flat object, and as we move right, it'll increase in the graphical quality. They're useful for various reasons, but we'll also notice that there is a door collider. So all of the 3D models, they don't have any collisions by default. Whenever you're building a 3D model, make sure that there's a collider object in there. So if we would disable and turn off all of these things, all the locks and all this other stuff, camera, whatever. I don't know, there's a camera in here. Right, we're gonna see that this is just the shape. This is what people are bumping into all the damn time. All right, just so you know. Okay, so let's take a look at our animator. We have a couple tracks. It is open door, capital O, capital D. Nonsense. That should have worked. This is one way to perceive it. When we get further into the Blender specific stuff, maybe things will change a little bit. Let's go do that. Maybe it'll work this time. If it doesn't work, I plan on moving ahead anyway, guys. I do not plan on. There's a lot of stuff I want to cover. This door not opening isn't as important. I want to get into some more of the aspects of setting up your entities because it's critical. So this should work. Oh, you dastardly door. Let's take a look at the docs one this time. I don't give up easily. New animation stage. Let's try this one. Okay, so one of the cool things about this is I added this transform component to this object, right? I can get this transform by doing this .get component, right? And I can pass in transform. This is just an example. Hopefully this won't confuse. But if I ever wanted to get the position, the scale, the rotation, I could at any point in time do this type of thing where I could just go and say, hey, I know this entity has one of these things. Can you go get it for me? And now T for transform will have like all of the stuff. I have the position, the rotation, all of the things that that object has. And that allows us to easily manipulate it, by the way. But let's say for this, maybe I have to do this, maybe I have to do this type of thing instead. Let's say this dot get component, right? So I'm doing essentially the same thing I just did above. This dot get component, I only have one animator, right? I added the animator, right? So it's there. And I want to add the clip. I don't know why this would be different, but let's just see. How embarrassing. I'm going to save. Let's see if this works. Technically, it's the same thing. Save again. Let me reload it. Some errors. Oop. What is that noise? Okay. If anyone has any questions, just throw in the chat while I'm doing this. I'm going to be moving on in just a second. Should be loading. It is not working. I don't know, guys. We're going to move on anyway. Sorry. Normally that works. I could spend 10 minutes or 20 minutes troubleshooting it, but just not working right now. All right. So let's go to our thing here. Let's add a couple more things. Okay. Let's get rid of this, make it nice and tidy. So one thing that comes up a lot, and I need to address this, is sometimes when you go into the, let's say you start your project with the builder. All right, we went over this in the first session a little bit, and we kind of went over like why certain things look really bad in Decentraland sometimes, or you know, why the content is the way that it is. But people might make an entire scene, and when they go to download it, well, let me edit this. I don't know if it'll let me edit it without jumping in. Essentially, they download it. It gives them a bundle of files just like this. Only it doesn't fit their. It doesn't fit. Like they want to rotate the entire thing. Like maybe it's not pointing in the right direction, or something along those lines, right? So let's do that real quick. Let's play around. So let's say that I don't want this to be where it is. I want that door to be all the way down here on this side. Let's just say, okay. Let's follow me for a second. So we're passing in our door and our facade, and these are the locations. I could probably just straight up make the 0 anyway. Let's do a thing where we say const. Yes, Robert. I do find the fact that this is being done in TypeScript is a godsend. And actually, I think it's probably required because this JavaScript gets compiled into code for Unity to consume. So there really is no room for error. And when you think about all of the things that can go wrong in Decentraland, like sometimes like the wildest thing, like a door might not open, it doesn't break the entire world, right? It doesn't happen. So it's great. So let's do new vector 3. I'm actually just going to declare this variable, right? Because that's what we can do. This is a new vector 3. I'm going to pass this to both because I want to move them both at the same time. And because I'm really not interested in copying and pasting more than once, we're just going to do that. We're going to save it. We're going to make sure. Okay, let's start moving this thing. I don't know what axis is what yet, so I'm just going to change one value. It's going to be, it's going to do this yell. It's going to yell at me because I moved it on the wrong axis. This happens every time. If it doesn't happen to you, you are a genius. But I moved it outside the bounds. We see that beautiful red Ugandan goofed it type of thing. So no, that is not it. I'm going to say 16. I'll tell you why. Okay, so I do know that each of these parcels is 16 meters by 16 meters. So I can, with pretty strong confidence, just say that if it was on 16 on that axis, it's about here, right? But I also know that if I was to do 32, it'll push it to where I want it, but it's going to have an issue. It's going to be a little bit, all right, it's going outside the bounds of it, right? So let's pull that back a little bit, maybe 31, save it. 30, save it. Okay. And we got like this awning, just gonna eyeball it. Let's see. All right. So it's clearly 29 is about right. Okay. Now, Decentraland still has this issue where even though it is correct, it's still going to be red. Just hit refresh. It only happens with certain stuff like that. For most other things, it's usually on top of it. Sorry, there's a bug. Here we go. See, we got a beautiful door. Now, I might realize now, after developing for quite a period of time, if I had all of my code put together in something that we had back here, where is it? So if in this game, right, let's imagine that I realized, hey, it's not facing the right direction. I might have to change a lot of stuff. I might have to change a lot of these positions, a lot of these rotations and everything. But I don't want to do that. So I don't want the door to be facing this direction. I want the door to be on the opposite side, actually, when I deploy this property, let's just say. So luckily for us, entities also act a little bit like DOM objects. So when we have, building out websites and stuff, you can pack one element inside of another, inside of another, inside of another, and then you can move the parent object and they all kind of go with it. We're going to do that right now. So we're going to do, I think it's okay to do the base out here. Let's do class base extends entity. Constructor, this becomes muscle memory after a while. Okay, and what I want to do here is I want to do this thing where I want to have, you don't have to make everything public. Actually, by default, if you do not include this, it'll make your values public. I just like to do it just so that later I can change all of them to private where I want them. So what I have here is I have an entity. It's called base. That's typically what people call it. You can call it whatever you want. And it has two variables in here for door and facade. Okay. Actually, we don't need, let's say, I'm going to call it facade, I guess. Oops, when I deleted it. This dot door equals new door location. Okay. I want to pass in one location. Okay, so we have that. We have our location. Hopefully this isn't too confusing to people, but I promise you this will make your life so much easier when you're messing around with these types of things. I promise. So let's do new base. What const base equals new base. It's passing location. Okay. Let's hit save. Oh. Okay. Two things happen here which are kind of weird. I did not add engine dot add entity this. And that's okay because in the door and the facade, we have that code that add it to the engine. So it's not that big a deal. But if I was to say remove entity, oops, it should not show that, I think. I would assume it wouldn't. You can hide and show by that means. Like if I didn't add it indoor or facade, I think it would work. But for this, we're just gonna get rid of this. Okay. Just know that you might have to play around with this sometimes. It's how you hide and remove objects. So cool. Now I also might want to, instead of just location, I might want to put rotation in there too. So let's make a new variable, and it's going to be mad because I didn't actually declare it yet. Now we have that quaternion, and we're going to do set Euler and 0, 0, 0, just because I need that. And over here, we're going to do rotation, quaternion. Actually, no, leave that. Actually, you know what? This dot add component, new transform, because what we want to do is actually apply the rotation here is actually what we want to do. To be honest with you. So let's see why this is angry with me. Oops, makes sense. Okay, so that should be there. We should save this without any problems. And now if we go in, we should be replaced. We should be doing the whole thing. Oh, I get it. I'm so sorry. Glad we did this. So even though these are in here, in this entity, they're not there's a parent object. So let's do this. This dot door dot set parent. This dot facade dot set parent. This. Okay. Now it needs to be added to the entity. Engine dot add entity this. There we go. Boom. And it's all the way over there. Look at that damn thing. I don't know why it's all the way over there, but it is. Okay, we have to do a couple things to make this our completely portable building, by the way, too. Let's go back into our door and everything. Now, we were passing in this position. Let's give it a default. You can, if you omit them, it'll just default to zeros. So I'm just going to do that real quick. Just adding a new vector 3. All right. So your game, rotation. Set this to 0. Okay, so we have that. All right. I want to do 180. It's a little too far down there. But if I set these to 0, maybe it's better. You have to play with these values a little bit. I have a tool available in my I have a library. If you do a search for DCL Connect on NPM, it allows you to kind of have a UI that'll make it a little bit easier for moving these things around, so you don't actually have to keep saving. Should be in that repo. Let's see. We want to move this over 8. And nope, -8. You got to play with it a little bit. There we go. But you can see I'm only moving one object now, and it's moving all of them. So if you have like a car, and the car has like a steering wheel and it has wheels, you would just have to move the car. If you set the wheels and the steering wheel, the parent to be the whole car itself, which is great. Let's see, 7. No, it is 8. And you got to play with these things. I think it's like probably -2. Okay, maybe 3. Okay, cool. So now we got like the nesting aspect of it down. That's critical. How much more time do we have? We have some more time. So I want to add in, yeah, we had a door, so we were able to rotate it. Pretty sweet. Can't open that door still, but that's okay. Let's take a look at the docs a little bit. I want to make sure that I cover some of these things. We have the ability to play sounds. So sounds are just like everything else, where we're adding a new component to an object. Or for this instance, like, I guess you don't need to add that one, not for an audio clip actually, but you just add new audio clip, and then you can keep passing it MP3s to play. There's some really good demos on the awesome repository that go into this in a lot more depth, right? We have our, how to move entities. Maybe we want to do that. I want to get into systems actually right now. But we also have event listeners. So some of this isn't really used as much, but if you want to, let's say somebody's dancing and they do a certain type of emote, maybe they do a wave or something like that. You can check to see what that user is doing. If you want to add that into some weird dance game, like Dance Dance Revolution, you could probably do in here pretty easily. Okay. We also have like text shapes, which are, you'll see them often in Decentraland. They're just 3D text. They're flat text. They're not like they have any depth, but you can have them positioned above certain objects, and maybe we'll do that too. Actually, let's do that with a box. So we do have that door box, if you guys remember. Let's do that. Let's do crate.ts, I believe. So let's just grab this door code that we have. Let's go to, or actually grab facade because it's a lot neater. And let's call this crate. Okay, so we have that, no rotation. I have to pass it a position, and that'll be cool. Let's close builder because I need my resources. Okay, so I have this new class. It's essentially just giving it a transform, a shape. We can get rid of animator, actually. You don't need that. I don't know why that was in there on that one. Why was it on that one? All right. Okay. Cool. So let's add that into our game. So we have our base. We don't really need that crate to be part of our building that we were moving. So we could actually just add it somewhere down here. Right. And because of the wonderfulness of TypeScript, it added it at the top in my import. Oh, thank God. And it wants me to pass in a new vector 3 for the position. So I just do new vector 3. And let's say I want to do 8, 0, 8, which is a good way to kind of put it in the middle of a parcel, by the way. 8, 0, 8, because it's 16 by 16, 8 and 8, that's about half. And 0, well, I guess the positioning of this thing is about half a meter. So let's actually raise it up a little bit there. Let's just say 0.5. Yeah, it moves the crate up quite a bit. Okay, so let's do a little bit of that text shape stuff. Sorry. And let's grab this code. It's really good to just copy and paste on this stuff. Okay, so we have all of us. Let's just throw this down. And now we're gonna introduce ourselves to that there can only be one shape per object. But I do want to have this specific text hover over this crate all the time. I think it'd be really great. The best way to do this is basically, I got my text. Let's see my entity, add component, my text. If I hit save, let's just see what this does. I don't think it should break anything, but I know it's not going to be what we want. Yeah, it doesn't. Where's the text? Right, the text will probably appear somewhere at 0, 0, if I had to guess. Yeah, it's not really there. It's nothing's happening, right? Because does anyone know why this isn't happening at all? It's mostly because I'm not adding this entity to the engine for the most part. There's a question. Let me just get to it. When it comes to experimenting, how granular would you suggest we get with the compartmentalization, that word, of components? All right, sound versus entities, et cetera, et cetera. I like to build things out like if you're familiar with React, you know that when you reuse something over and over again, you want to make it a specific entity type. It really helps a lot. like if we were to make these crates something that you could break with like a crowbar or something like that, you would want to basically build out all of the code, right? It's like you would want to make something like, you know, on break, you know, and then have, you know, like basically, you know, play break animation and then also like, you know, play noise or sound, right? We can do like on pickup, you know, like this. I would basically break down my entity with all of the types of things that I would want it to eventually do. Just even from conceptually, I like to break my entities out like this so I know what they'll eventually do. It's like a roadmap for what this crate will do. Maybe we'll stick to this actually. Just want to be mindful of time. So does that hopefully answered your question? So we got a crate. I want to add this text shape to this crate, but it's already got a shape, and there's this text shape, and they don't like each other because there can only be one. But because of what we just did with the building, where we put the door and the facade inside of the base, and we're able to rotate that base around, we're gonna do about the same thing right now. All right, we're gonna do public. You do it public for as much as you want right now. When we get down to next week, we'll get in more granularity about like what maybe not to do with that. What was I gonna do? Oh yeah, a text entity. This is the naming convention that I like to do. And because it's always going to be the same, we don't have to worry about passing it in a constructor or doing any of that stuff, right? So this makes it pretty easy. I also might want to do public text shape. Text shape equals new text shape. A lot of text shape. Okay, let's get rid of these guys. Okay, so I'm going to now just do. Okay, so let's add the entity right now. So let's say, or the entity has already been added up here, but let's add the shape to it. So this dot text entity dot add component. This dot text shape. Cool. This dot text entity dot add component. It doesn't have a position, right? So let's do new transform. Defaults are fine. It'll be 0, 0 for the most part. Scale is 1, 1. Don't have to worry about it. And let's do this dot text entity dot set parent, and let's set it to be this. Okay. Hopefully this works. Cool. So we can see what the text shape does, and obviously it's very large. We can now use the beautiful aspect of TypeScript to get into how to make changes. So text shape dot. A lot of the information, you don't have to go to the doc cell that often. If you know what the essentials are about how to make entities and components and everything, you can find a lot from just the autocomplete. So maybe this font size is a little bit too small. Well, I hit font size, and I don't know what it is. Let's say I set it to 1. It's probably a little guy. He's probably in there. If I set it to 10, what is 10? Yeah, that's about 10. Let's see, 5. All right, and I love the hot loading because you can just play with it. But I want this to be a little bit above, so let me just add a position. Let's say I want it to remain where it is, but I want it to go a little bit taller. So I'm just going to add, on the y-axis is up and down in this world. So I'm going to add 3, and that's way too much apparently. So 2, 1. You notice it kind of like bounces a little bit. That could be fixed by just moving this text shape under where I declare my font size, probably. Yeah. So, you know, it takes a beat. We're going to get to that in just a second. I really want to get the systems because of all of these pieces, you should theoretically be able to assemble quite a lot of stuff from just what you guys have hopefully learned right now. If I did a decent job, let me move this parent down too, because that would be nice. Cool. Now, there's also a thing that people use a lot in Decentraland. It's called a billboard. So I'll show you what a billboard is. So billboard. Cool. So what a billboard does is it just takes an object and just points it at the user. So the cool thing here is I can go this dot text entity to the entity, add component, new billboard, right? It's an autocomplete it. I don't think it needs to be included at the top. I think it's just part. I'm gonna save it. And now look, it's always there. It's always visible, always watching. You creepy crate, which is cool. And oh, there's so many different ways to go. I want to pick up this crate maybe. Or there's one other, no, I got to get into a couple more things first before I do that. Actually, I'm looking at my notes. I'm going to copy the facade again. I just want to go into the different types of shapes before. Let's just call it shapes.ts. Okay. And we're going to call this shapes. Okay. We're going to get rid of that shape. Okay. So where we were mostly just passing in a model, sometimes we don't have a model. Sometimes we just want to use a plane. Sometimes we just want to use like a sphere, cube, cone, right? It's a lot of shapes. Let's say this dot add component new box shape, right? Let's just do that. I'm gonna keep it as a name of shapes for now. We're gonna go to game. We're gonna add it. I have to make sure I am picking this one because this is I named it the same as something else, right? But it has to be imported that way. Okay, cool. Okay, let's take a look. Now, always look in the corner. We got our box shape. This is different. This is a crate. It's a 3D model. It's got textures. It's creepy. But this one, this is actually a very unique thing in Decentraland because it allows me to change the textures of it live. And we'll likely get into this a little bit down the road, but you'll see a lot of examples where, you know, it might be a floating cube and someone goes and they point their pointer at it and it turns red, or it grows, or it does something, right? We saw in the original demo, there was a box that was spinning and people went and clicked it and it changed shape and size and it scattered them all across, right? With these shapes, you do get certain benefits. There's certain things that you can do, and a lot of them do lead to some pretty interesting things. And maybe instead of going through each and every one of these, although I totally should do a couple more, you know what? I definitely should. Hold on. Let me just position that cube. Let me a little bit further back would be good. 12. Okay, so that's a cube shape, right? But let's say I want it to do a plane shape. Plane shapes are really powerful. So here's a plane shape. I have in, oh, it's there. Thank God. So I have some videos of things that I built in the past, and I'll just show you one of these. So this is, it's, you know, these spit flap things. You see them in, well, I guess you used to see them in airports and stuff where they kind of flip. I did this by constructing an array of plane shapes, and then I had them rotate at a certain angle, and I was able to control this. Looking for a new key? I'm not looking for anything. That's what I'm doing. I'm like rotating them really fast, and I'm changing the textures, and it's kind of crazy. The code is available if you're really curious to know how that thing actually operates. It's there, but that's what I was doing with a plane shape. So whereas with a model, you really can't control a lot of the textures with an actual GLB or GLTF, but with like a box shape, you can do stuff where like I have like this one object for like being able to place things down in the world. I do believe this code is also available. I'm not totally sure. If it isn't, I'll make it available. You guys should have it. It's fun. But this will allow you to make, if you wanted to make it, you know, for my farm, I wanted to make it so you can place these things down. That's a box shape and a plane shape, and it uses some funny, weird textures. And with that, you can also then use the certain types of colors to, you can't really see it there. I should probably pause it, but you can change the colors dynamically and to affect and do certain stuff with that with a box shape. which is really useful. I'm trying to think what else there is. There's this tweaker thing I was telling you guys about, which might be useful, but yeah, this video here. Basically, it just allows you to kind of press buttons to automatically move and position things while you're in the game, which has a lot of use. You know, it's useful. Anyway, check out the DCL Connect NPM package. There's some really useful stuff in there. I have an entire inventory system. We'll get into some of that stuff later. But here we go. We got our plane. We can do a lot of cool stuff with it. Cool. Let's do that thing. Plane shape. Does anyone want to see anything specific? We can get into all the different types of shapes. You can just go to that thing and play around. I mean, obviously, a lot of the fun stuff is just messing around to see what can happen. Oh, that's what I wanted to do. Perfect. We're going to get into systems. That was what I wanted to talk to you guys about. What is there any other stuff? Okay, so we have a lot of these objects and things, and they're really just mostly static. And like maybe I want this plane to spin. You know, maybe that's what I want it to do. The original code that you get when you deploy your initial scene, it does have a rotation thing in there, but I want to kind of talk about it in a way, a different way. So, oh, this is going to be great. I'm very happy about this. Let's get wild a bit. Let's go into, oh man, it'd be fun. I want to show you guys. We're going to get rid of, for now, this shape, because we're just get rid of it for now. Just, I don't want it to render just a moment. We're going to go crazy in here. I'm going to type very quickly. I apologize, but it's going to be fun. So, let's see. How do we do this? I'm thinking it out in my head too, so I'm not entirely there. If we do class rotate shape implements iSystem. So this is the first introduction to an iSystem. What this is, if we look at our code hall, if we look at our architecture overview, we're going to get an introduction to systems. So this is what a default system looks like. There is one function really that is necessary, which is the update function. That's it. And we're going to add that right now. And what this system does is it's always called DT. Delta time is technically what DT stands for. So when Decentraland is rendering, it renders a frame as fast as it can. That varies depending on the computer, what is happening, and a bunch of other stuff. It takes that time and it writes it down. It goes, all right, I did this at this exact millisecond. When it's done with the next render, or when it can render the next frame, it knows the delta time, which is the distance between two frames in seconds or milliseconds, right? So what we'll do is essentially this delta time, you can kind of think of it like how much time before the last render, and I want you to do something. It's going to do this every single time that a frame is rendered. So we're going to have this thing called rotate shape, implements iSystem, and there's a bunch of different ways of doing this. This might not be the smartest way, but it's the way I'm gonna be doing it. Okay, we're gonna do that. Actually, let's just say rotate entity. Even let's make it even simpler. Just rotate entity. I'm gonna do a public variable. I want to call this entities, and we're going to get introduced to how to have a bundle of entities. It's array entity, right? And I'm going to give it an empty. So this is how we have an array of a specific type. TypeScript is crazy in various ways, and it's really good and useful for that. But like sometimes this gets really annoying. Kind of get away with any sometimes, but if you know what is in there, and we will have a bunch of entities, just do this. Okay. So what I want to be able to do is I want to put a bunch of entities into this. So let's go. It does have a constructor still. And in fact, why don't I just do this? Get rid of that. I'm actually going to declare entities in here. This is good too, actually. Because I'm editing it in the constructor, I actually don't need it up here, which is another particular thing about TypeScript. So I want to be able to add a bunch of entities into this thing. And it will be public when that happens, by the way, so might as well just do that. I don't need any code in here just yet. But what I want to do is here, I want to do log this dot entities, and it's auto completing it, so I know that I'm not wrong. I mean, I might be wrong for other reasons, but I'm not wrong for the explicit type declarations. And I've created this just like I would do with all these other things. I have to actually add it. All right, I want to export this. So I'm exporting a shape, and I'm exporting this in the same file. You could break it out. Sometimes you might want to make a directory called systems. Kind of depends on your organization. But I want to get through this. Okay, so this gets executed. Okay, so let's go back to game, and I want to add a new system. So const rotate system equals new rotate entity. It's going to delete a letter, and then it'll autocomplete, and then you could now it has it imported up here. And it's angry because I didn't pass it in anything. So I'm just going to pass it an empty array, right? Just make sure everything else is there. You have creepy crate. That's fine. Okay, let's do console. Okay, so now I'm going to pass in crate. Just one entity for now. Just one. And nothing happened because our entity isn't doing anything. So I want to, it should actually be logging this, to be honest with you. It should be logging that. It should be iterating over. We should be seeing a bunch of blah, 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 blah. Did I not do the thing? Yep, I didn't do the thing. So I have to add it, just like how engine now add, how we add entities, you also got to add systems. These are most of the issues that people have. I've seen so many tutorials where this exact thing happens. It's just the way it is. Okay, so now we're actually seeing it's going over all of these. Right, it's happening really fast because it could be rendering anywhere from 30 to 60 frames a second, or if you have a real bad computer, it could be a lot, could be different, right? I want to iterate over all of these entities, and I want to adjust their rotation. So I can do this dot entities dot. We can do for each entity. So this, I'm sorry about this form of TypeScript. It works really well in the Decentraland, by the way. I'm going to do let t equals entity.get component transform. So now I'm going to grab that specific entity, have its transform. So now I have its rotation, right? I have that value. I can do rotation dot set, and because I want to work in real numbers that humans can deal with, I'm going to do set Euler. Right? I'm going to set them all to 0 really quickly. Right. And also, while we're at it, let's also log let's log this DT so you guys see what it looks like. Right. So DT, the amount of time that is in between every frames, it varies pretty wildly. Right. But if I was able to have a number up here, let's see, public timer number, right? And I was to say set it to 0, okay? And I would say this dot timer plus equals DT. Log this dot timer. Okay. We're going to see that this just keeps escalating, and every second, mind you, right? Because it's just adding time from the previous frame. So this is really useful if I want to have an animation happen between 0 and 5 seconds, 0 and 10 seconds, or whatever it is, right? I can use this number very easily because I can say, if this dot timer is greater than let's say 5, right? 5 seconds, then I want you to rotate, right? Maybe actually let's just comment it out. Let's have it just log. Oops. Just want to comment it out for a second. Let's say we just want it to go, hey, log 5 seconds has passed. And I want to refresh it. This dot timer equals 0. So I'm actually telling it to just start over. It's important. I also have this log timer. Let me get rid of that because it's just you're getting in the way of everything. Right? So just muddying up our logs, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Glad I didn't write 50. We'd be here for a while. Yeah, boom, 5 seconds. Cool. So maybe I don't want that to happen. Maybe I just want it to happen every half a second, right? Boom. 0.5 seconds has passed, right? This is really cool because if you want to maybe have a bunch of enemies come out at a certain duration of time or something like that, maybe you want to randomize the timers so they happen in a weird sequence. You can do a lot of powerful stuff with this system. Right now, we're just going to rotate a cube. That's all. And we're going to, and it's good to this is called debouncing. I think it's called debouncing, by the way. So if I was doing a really complicated task at this moment, I might not want to do this every frame. It might not be performant. It might not be useful and important. By doing something like this and setting this up very early, I actually have a lot more control over the performance. And getting in the habit of this is probably really important. Okay, I'm sorry about the time. I don't know how much longer you guys want to hold on for, but please let me know. It seems like there's still people hanging out. So let me just close up a couple things. I'll open it up for questions. We'll turn off the mics and stuff. But I really want to get through this. Let's get that rotating cube. This is also essentially what's happening in that very first. That the boilerplate stuff that you get when you first start Decentraland. So I want to now I have this DT, which is by second. Let's just say I want to rotate it by a certain value. So I can take set rotation, set Euler. Let's rotate it on the y-axis, but I would need the axis of it now. So what is the current value? Right, and I can get that right here. And maybe I want to add a new thing called public rotate. I just call it speed. Number, let's call it, I don't know, let's say 5. I want that thing whirling about. So now I know the current entity's rotation. I can just do y plus this dot speed. Boom. It should be spinning. You should be spinning, fella. Let me just make sure that it's working. Set Euler. Set speed is good. Should be. It is moving. It is doing a little, but it's not really doing it. Oh, plus equals speed. Oh, I don't know what you guys got. I'm seeing messages. Hold on. Someone's like yelling at me. Okay. I'm sorry. I was looking at the messages that people have. This should be doing it. Should be why? Oh, whoops. We want this to increase. So it's increasing by 5, right? So it goes to 0 to it just boom. But I need that to just keep happening. Let's just say plus equals dt just for now. Dt times speed. This dot speed. There's math.
Maybe on 34, if you do y equals rotation y plus the speed.
Well, the speed only adds it by 5. It should be. It is also resetting all the damn time. So maybe. Let's just keep it simple. I mean, obviously I'm like trying to do this really quick. I'm very sorry, everyone, but let's just do. You can do this too, where you can kind of like, it's almost like jQuery, where you can kind of just chain them. So it's entity.getComponent transform. I have that object. I know that object has a rotation. I know that rotation has this function, and then we could just do that, right? And let's get rid of this timer thing just for now. I just want to see it move. There, you can look at the actual example, and I probably should have done that about 5 minutes ago. Sorry. Ooh. There we go. There we go. Finally. Sorry. So we have that, but now what we can do is we can pass in as many of these objects as we want, which is one of the other things that the original demo is actually doing. So when this thing gets instantiated, I can just go into here. I hope I didn't break it just then. And just add, you know, I could add a whole bunch of these different crates. And that's kind of what they were doing. They're doing like a map.random function here, essentially, right? Now, some of these, I don't know what they're going to be available in the future, to be honest with you. Just because they're trying to move away from browser-specific functions, because eventually Decentraland is going to be being used in a lot of other things other than the web. It might be iOS, Android, and others. Talking and typing is not the best. Okay. So we got all these boxes that are just kind of, they're all doing it. You can throw in as many as you want. There's other things that you can do too with this type of system, is you can actually like hold on to like what entities may be being looked at and highlighting it or making it big or bold or do any of those things. But that's just generally the gist. I wish that last little bit was a little more smooth, but you guys can imagine I did a better job at it, I'm sure. There's this 2D UI. Let me show you guys the package that I have. Okay, so I highly encourage people to just like, if you want to bounce through this GitHub repo, it has way more downloads a little while ago, because a lot of these types of things I get into with some of, it's all pretty much in here. There's a whole GUI animation system. So before you guys do anything, try out my GUI animation system. It makes it a lot easier to move elements and things around the screen, like GUI, like health bars and things like that. You have here you can play around with. There's a lot of useful utilities, like a proper weight and all this other stuff. I'll get into some more of those details in a future session, but I think we're about at time. It has so much more stuff to cover. I think we're just going to end it there, I guess, for right now. Right, we're at time.